We acknowledge we are gathered in the traditional territories of various Indigenous peoples, and we further recognize our duty to support the achievement of the calls to actions stemming from the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. And I'd like to welcome you all. My name's Peter Beans, and I'd like to welcome Fusco, who's going to be talking to us about podcasting. I've been through a similar presentation like this, and it's pretty exciting what you can do with your students. So I hope you benefit. Anyway, with that, I'd like to introduce Carlo. Carlo is currently a teacher, librarian, and science teacher at the Waterloo Collegiate Institute in Waterloo, Ontario. Previously, he was a guidance counselor, special education teacher, technology teacher, elementary school teacher, and a college professor. However, he's primarily been a secondary school teacher teaching biology and chemistry for 20 years. Carlo has always been intrigued by technology and its impact on enhanced student learning. That's why he can offer, I lost track here. That's why he can often be found sharing with colleagues and students his experience with effective use of technology in the classroom. He also regularly participates in conferences and leads PD activities within and outside his school board to demonstrate the use of technology with a foundation in sound pedagogical practice. His current interests are blogging, podcasting, cloud-based tools for education, mobile computing, cybersecurity, and microcomputers. You can find his digital footprint at fusco.ca or on Twitter at Mr. Fusco, which I'll put in the chat window in just a moment. So let's turn it over to Carlo.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Okay. Oh, look at everyone's. So now I get to see everyone. Hi, welcome. My name's Carlo Fusco, and I'll be doing today's session. I'll have to be honest with you, with this whole COVID thing, I'm a little out of practice, so you'll have to bear with me. So I'm going to just fire up my screen sharing, and I'm going to just show all of screen one. Here we go, share. Okay. So you should be able to see my my screen with the slideshow for today. Just a thumbs up, anyone? Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Just going to move this so I can see more of you. Okay, so what I've done in the chat is I've thrown a couple links before I started. The copy of the slides was the first one. What I do there is whenever I do anything like this, I like to just give everything away so that you can take it, use it, and modify it to any of your needs. So I put a bit.ly link. I just call it OTF-podcasting-22. What that'll do is it'll create a copy of this slide deck for you so that you can have your own personal copy. So if there's anything you've missed, you can go back and grab it, because a lot of the slides will contain live links that you can use to get back to some of the source material. Now, as you know, with any presentation, even in your own teaching, you don't always get to everything you actually want to say. And there are things you forget because you get caught up in the moment with the people that are with you. So what I've done as well is I've added a web page. So I've made an online resource so that you can actually take a deeper dive into the material that has been put together. So I'm just moving my chat window here so I can see a little easier. Okay, so this way here with the website, I go into a great deal of detail. You'll actually find that there's even step-by-step instructions on how to build a private website for your podcasting, as well as a public website for your podcasting. What I wanted to do today was actually just go through some of the tips and tricks that we use in my school. We use podcasting techniques for things like announcements. So today I'm going to walk you through that. And usually I work with a smaller group. So apparently there's going to be a large group here today. So I still would like to say, feel free to jump into the chat, and then Peter will interrupt me and we'll answer questions as we go. I'll also try to stop at the end of each section to see if there's any questions at that point. All right, well, let's get started. Okay, so what are podcasts? A lot of people, when I had first done this presentation, had absolutely no idea. They had heard the word and they had saw an app and they were completely unsure what to do about it. So I'd like to start with just a quick definition for people, and that is a podcast is an audio program just like talk radio, but you subscribe to it on your smartphone and listen to it whenever you like. So I like to think of it as talk radio on demand. And what I really love about it is a majority of it is spoken word, and they focus on really, really specific topics or themes. So if you're into cycling, you will find at least 100 podcasts just on cycling. If you're interested in technology, you'll be overwhelmed with the choices. The politics, you name it, it's there. So I'll walk you through some of the ones that I enjoy listening to. Most of my podcast listening actually happens when I'm in my car driving, commuting, or I'm walking the dog. So I put on some headphones and I learn something while I'm out. So it's really kind of great because you do go into sort of these little micro worlds of high focus. It actually can be quite a lot of fun. All right. So how do I listen? There are a number of ways for you to listen to a podcast. You can actually just download the MP3 file and listen to it any way you'd like. I do like to use a specific podcast app. The one that I actually, my preference is something called Pocket Casts. The reason I use that is I never know what kind of phone I'm going to have. I sometimes switch phones from an iPhone to an Android phone, or I might pick up a tablet. Pocket Cast is uniform. Sorry, I meant to say universal. It's on all devices as well as on the web. So it doesn't matter where I am. I can pick up where I left off using any device of choice. So it's one of the ones I use for managing my podcasts and then just picking them up and listening to. Others that you can actually play with are things like Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, or Spotify. But if you don't want to look at any of these, some of them might actually be paid. There are native podcasting apps now that are available both on iOS as well as on Android. So those are now built right in. Okay, so how do I? I just noticed something in the. Sorry, I'm just. Peter, can you repost the slides? Okay, somebody's got that. Thank you very much for taking care of that. So how do I listen? Again, I tend to do a lot of wireless headphones. So I'll keep a pair with me so that I can listen to it. But I also do stream them to smart speakers around the house, Bluetooth speakers, even car stereos. And I always like to throw in a bit of trivia when we're going through this. So for example, the Bluetooth symbol, most people don't realize when they look at the Bluetooth symbol that it's actually somebody's initials. It was done by Swedish programmers, and they wanted to name it after King Bluetooth, so it was Harold Bluetooth. So the Nordic symbols for H and B, and they mushed them together, and that's how we ended up with the Bluetooth symbol. But I do use Bluetooth in the car to listen to podcasts, as well as headphones. So what are some of the podcasts that you could listen to as teachers? Again, I'm looking at us as educators and some of the things that might be of interest. Now, I'm going to just give you a small sample here. What's in my podcast list is constantly changing. I'm constantly adding things and taking things out. I'm interested in technology, so I have a daily tech news show. It's 30 minutes and I can listen to something. The other one that I'm really into is 99% Invisible. It's about industrial design. So things that, like, why does this one chair show up in every TV show? And it'll go through the design process of where that chair was invented and how it became popular. The one I was really interested in recently was they were talking about Mexico City and how, as they're drawing water out of the city, out of the aquifer, the whole city's sinking. And it was just talking about all these different things that are going on in Mexico City. Sometimes I just want to be entertained. Everything is Alive is kind of funny. It takes an inanimate object and has an interview with it, like it's personified. One episode was about bagpipes, and so the interviewer was asking him, so how do you socialize with other people? And the bagpipes would say, well, everybody avoids me, and things like that. And it's actually quite humorous. So as you go through, you'll see stuff that may or may not interest you. For example, Freakonomics, that's always been interesting if you've read the books. There's still a weekly podcast. If you're into a little bit of Ontario politics, Wag the Doug is always kind of funny, because we'll just say a left-wing view on our current conservative government. This Week in Science is also interesting, as well as The World's Greatest Con, looking at some of the things that um, like right now they're looking at a game show and how all the scams that took place in game shows back through the 50s all the way to current day. So the last one was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I didn't know that there was coughing going on to give the correct answers when that show first came out. So I learned something new. So you can see there's a huge list here, and there's thousands and thousands of these. You can actually go and see lists and see what's popular here in Canada. Now, when you do find something you like, you have to understand that a lot of the people that are doing this are just like you and I, who have a particular interest and may choose to do this from their home. So they will actually ask for you to support them. So there's really two ways that people ask for support. The Patreon, so you can become a patron. They ask for a monthly donation. It's like a cable subscription. The reason I like the Patreon model is they'll often give you the podcast without the advertisements. So you can have commercial-free podcasts. And sometimes they just sell things like t-shirts. And so you can actually buy t-shirts, but they'll continue to provide the podcast for free. So just, again, different ways. This is really grassroots type stuff. Okay, some of the tools. Before I move into the tools, any questions just on what podcasts are and what are you interested in? Okay, I'll keep going. So what a podcast is. So what I want to take you through the next step is, what are the tools that you need to do this? And I just want to just go through those because I'm going to give you examples that are free. I try to avoid anything that has a subscription, but I also try to avoid anything where a school board may say to you, this is a third-party app and you can't use it. So I'm going to try and keep everything that would run natively on a PC or a Mac that you have in your school environment, so that you can do things locally and not have to worry about putting things on a third-party website that may or may not be acceptable to your school board. So a couple things first. Quick note about copyright. Fair dealing decision tools. A lot of times teachers are still unsure what they can and cannot use. So the Principals Council has actually put together a website that when you click on the fair dealing decision tool, you actually just go through clicking a few things and it'll tell you whether or not you can and cannot use it in your classroom. It's a great way to check things, but sometimes you just have a few sites that you go to automatically. So I'm just sharing you my three favorites. For example, Wikimedia Commons, for a lot of people, don't realize when you go to Wikipedia, all those images on Wikipedia are under a Creative Commons license. Most of the time, they're just asking for attribution, but there's way more images than they can put on Wikipedia. So they have a Commons site where there are millions and millions of images, audio files, and video that you can actually use with a Creative Commons license, which simply says, hey, just give us attribution, you can use this. So that's one of my favorites, as well as Pixabay. I do use Pixabay as well. I have to be careful with Pixabay because sometimes they'll put some advertisements in there. So they'll show you a list of the free pictures, the free images, and then on the side, they will then show you the ones that are linked to outside third parties that want you to pay for the images. And then my favorite for audio. With every podcast, you think about background music, maybe some intro music, some background music, or just anything that you're looking for. There's a gentleman by the name of Kevin MacLeod, who in the past created a website called Incompetech, which was for free free audio to put into any type of production. He was actually ended up being bought out by filmmusic.io, but he still makes all his work for free. The rule for him is you have to give him attribution. What this has done for him by making all of this free, so much of his work has shown up in so many different locations. He now makes his living doing soundtracks for motion pictures. So he had turned this little hobby into basically the way he support himself. Okay, so that's Kevin McLeod. Here's a sample of just here at the bottom. It just shows you how he wants you to cite it. So you would just copy and paste into um, your work the attribution. Now, microphones, 9 times out of 10, the microphone I use is my cell phone. It's good enough, really is. And it's also what you have with you. I'll just use the voice recording app. And so if for example, Peter, our host today, caught him off guard one day, I just pulled out my phone and say, I'm interviewing you and I'm going to ask you these questions. And when I hit record, be ready for it. And so I use my cell phone and then I just email the audio file to myself and then I clean it up and then I'm able to work with it. This is great because I will show you a sample where a teacher has done this in her class. And she's an English teacher who interviews her students on a quite regular basis, and just is working through a list of I think that her list is called 100 random questions to ask strangers. And so she does that with her class and she records it. And she's actually built a website and a podcast around it. Again, just for her kids. The microphone I do use is when I'm trying to do something a little bit more professional or something better sounding, because I want to get those deep basses going and have that radio voice thing happening. The Yeti microphone is my favorite. It's inexpensive. It's USB. It plugs into a Chromebook and just works great. It picks up audio really, really well. Multiple settings. So if you're just in front of it, you can have a setting it picks up from the front. But if you have it centered on a table, it'll actually record everybody at the table equally. So the omnidirectional settings are quite handy. It's this big thing. It's under $200. Again, assuming you have a budget for that. All right, audio processing. There's so much you can do here, and then you can get so deep into the weeds. I just use something called Audacity, which is very, very simple multi-track software recording software. And then I just use a plugin somebody had made called Chris's Dynamic Compressor. And what it does is sometimes when I do it with the cell phone, there's too much background noise. It'll clear up some of the background noise, but it'll also bring all the volumes up to where you can hear them. So if you ever listen to a podcast and you notice that the volumes are really low, this will fix it and bring everything back up to an acceptable level. And so it cleans it all up. So if you have even multiple tracks, you can put them all together. By the way, I will demonstrate this. This is just the talking head portion of this, but I will demonstrate this for you. Where if you don't have a website and you want to know where do I put these audio files that I'm finished with, SoundCloud has been something that we've been using at my school simply because they have great documentation as well as a back end that really lends itself well to podcasting. Just by putting things on SoundCloud, it almost instantaneously creates a podcast for you. It creates a feed that you can use. So again, very shortly, I'll show you how we've integrated SoundCloud into our school website, and we put our school announcements, our daily announcements on there. Now, I do have to admit, everything kind of fell apart with COVID. So March 2020 was the March 13th, 2020 is the last announcements that were on there. And I just went and looked at it the other day, and there's some comments going, oh, wow, our last day of school. So it was actually kind of funny, but it's still there. We do use it, and it's still part of our school website. Okay. Now, if you are wanting something a bit more permanent, something that, say you're building something and you want to save those audio recordings that survive past your retirement. So when kids are, they've graduated from your class 20 years down the road and they're having that conversation with their own kids about, oh, when I was in high school, I did this recording. You can actually take advantage of the Internet Archive to throw up those recordings. So we've been using that for some of the student recordings so that they'll be able to find it at a later date. So we were trying to say, okay, I'm going to retire at some point. This website's going to die. It's how the kid's going to find this. And so we've been using the Internet Archive because it's free and they're basically archiving the internet. They just will let you upload anything you want. And there it is. And what I like about it is sometimes people say, how do I embed audio onto a website if it doesn't let me upload the audio? You can just actually just connect to a link on the Internet Archive, and then it'll be able to play from the Internet Archive on your website. So it's also acts as a hosting service. So it'll store your resources. Once you've done that, so you've got your audio there, you've built a podcast, and you want to get it out to the public. I still find iTunes, they actually have a service called iTunes Connect. And when you log into it, it will actually help you set up a podcast. And so that it will be searchable and it'll show up into all the podcast search engines. So what I like about it is once you've got your first audio file recorded, you've got your website built, you've got it ready to roll, you just log into iTunes Connect, and then you just share the link to that first podcast. Somebody will test to make sure that you're not a bot, and then it'll go live, and then you'll be able to link everything through iTunes to your podcast through iTunes to anywhere you want. Okay, so that's that section, just talking about the tools. Any questions?
We've had a few questions come up about the YouTube audio library. I had said that was another location to get sound effects and music. And I said, you just have to pay attention to the attribution requirements. And so the attribution requirements are, like not everything is like totally free. Sometimes you have to comply with their requirements. Sometimes you have to embed the credit right in the media. So if it's a podcast, you have to make a mention of it, or if it's a video, you have to mention it in the video. Sometimes it's okay to just put it in the support notes. So if it's a video, you can put it in the description below, or generally if it's a podcast, there's a support page that goes with that podcast.
Okay, wonderful. I didn't actually know that was there. So thank you for sharing that, Peter.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Okay, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to just now, we've talked about what a podcast is. We've talked about the tools. Let me show you what we're actually doing, and then we'll demonstrate it. So there's still 2 more parts to go. All right, so here's what happens at our school. Morning announcements, you can't hear them. Kids are talking over them. There's just so much going on. So we wanted to have an alternative to the idea of PA announcements. So the public address system, not the greatest thing. So we asked ourselves, what tools are students using? So we thought, okay, they're really attached to their mobile devices. So let's make the announcements easy to find. But it's also interesting is the number of parents who then subscribed. Parents are actually more interested in our morning announcements than the students are sometimes. But it's also has given us a way to get announcements out. And we've actually handed over the announcements almost entirely to students. Our student leadership classes have taken over announcements, and they have done a great job. So we collect announcements using just a Google form. So if your school is using Google for their backend, this is the easiest way to do it. If they're not, seeking permission to set up a single Google account for your podcast in your class, if you're doing announcements, that's also acceptable. But again, it varies between school boards. I do know most school boards would either be a Microsoft backend or a Google backend, or even both. I'm going to use the Google one because this is what our school board's using, and this is how we've built it. And again, this can all be done with a personal account as well. You don't have to use a school account. Again, just ensure that you follow your board's third-party rules about software. Okay, so we had set up a specific Google account just called WCI Announcements so that we could keep everything in there. It contains all the artwork, all the forms, everything, all the finished audio files, everything. Everything is there. And then so that as kids transition out, we can just put new kids, just hand over the username and password, that type of thing. But for the most part, we've taken that away from students. Now we just let one teacher who's in charge of the announcements now runs the account. So we set up a form, my school, Waterloo Collegiate, so WCI announcement submission form. We put up a Google form with instructions. One of the things our staff were annoyed with was that, sometimes announcements were going 7-8 minutes long. We told them everything's going to be down to 2 minutes. 2-minute podcast. That's what we're doing, a 2-minute audio recording. So we tell them that their announcement has to be 500 characters. So that forces them to be concise. And we can get that whole thing together with something that students can read. So we put this right on the school website for teachers to access. And we give them the instructions that we want. Now, because Google Forms puts everything into a spreadsheet, spreadsheets are difficult to read large bodies of text. Also, spreadsheets just keep adding to the bottom, and so sometimes announcements can get missed if you're not checking the timestamps carefully. So we added a plugin to our Google Form called Email Notifications for Forms. And the reason we use this is it takes the information from the form, converts it into an email, and then sends it to who's ever going to be doing its announcements. And we can change that every semester. So there's actually in this little plugin, it says, what email do you want to send it to? So even if we never log into the WCI announcements, we never do, because it goes through this plugin and then it sends it to the student or to the teacher that's in charge of announcements. And then they'll get a bunch of emails on that day as they're coming in, and they can just collect up the emails. And it's just, so the email looks like this. I actually have a screenshot of the email here. The information we collect, teacher's name, what it's about, the date they want to announce, and what is the announcement body. How do you add the plugin? When you're in Forms, you'll notice a little puzzle piece, top right-hand corner. And then the plugin you're looking for is called Email Notifications for Forms. When you have a copy of this slide deck, just click the link, Forms to Email it add-on. That will actually take you to the website so you can add it in as well.
Carlo, we had another question about which app you use on an iPhone for recording your audio and sending a transcript to you.
Transcript?
Is there a recorder app that automatically creates a transcript?
No,
Android?
not that I'm familiar with.
Okay.
What you could do potentially is upload it to YouTube and then wait for a transcript to generate, and then you can copy and paste that. For us, it's all script-based, because mostly our ESL class does the announcements now, because they practice their public speaking.
Thank you.
Okay, so what does our product look like? So our student leadership takes responsibility for putting the announcements together, but our performers, we are an English language learning school, so we're a magnet school. So we have a large number of English language learners in our school, and so we incorporate them into school life quite heavily. And so they're the ones who are reading our morning announcements. So the leadership class will put everything together, but the ELL classes, the students that are the English language learners, they're the actual talent coming in to do the work. So after the announcements have been collected, the kids will come in during period A and do the recording. So period A, they go through the emails, they copy the body out of it, and they paste it into a document. And then the students come in and they start practicing reading the bodies as their script. So what we do in our school is at the beginning of period A, first period, we do opening exercise, and we do announcements at the beginning of period B. So again, just split that up so that you notice how, if you have a first period class, so much of your time gets swallowed up by those morning activities. We split it between two classes to try and cut down how each class is being impacted. Now, we do use the free tier of SoundCloud, which gives you 3 hours of recording. So what we do every semester is we delete all the old announcements, and then it gives us 3 hours. It refreshes our 3 hours, then we can do the next set of announcements. So we aim for 2 to 3 minutes for each morning announcement, and that 3 hours is more than enough for a semester. And again, how do I use SoundCloud? I've got a link here, documentation. They walk you through step by step on how to use their service. And then you can create this widget. So for example, this is the widget for our school. This is our morning announcements screenshot that you actually see on SoundCloud. You can go through, we just label it by date so people can go in and look at those. The script is copied and pasted in as the description. The reason is parents were saying, I don't have time to listen. but I want to know what's going on. So we've got into the habit of copying and pasting the script as the podcast description now. So now we have a text version as well as an audio version. Now, parents keep asking for Facebook, but the students say, I don't want to use Facebook, so we don't. But I'm thinking TikTok is coming next. It's having the kids really want to put announcements on TikTok. I'm waiting to see for permission first. So we'll have to wait for that one. Then once you go, you have it on SoundCloud and you've connected that through iTunes. This is what it looks like on iTunes. Our school announcements page on iTunes looks like this. It's marked WCI announcements by WCI announcements. And as you can see, all the audio recordings would be listed. And then you're able to go and listen to them at any time, but it also gives you a place to actually subscribe to it. So workflow. What we're doing and then how we're going to get there. Here we go. So make it easy. This first image here, these are the buttons on our website. So if you actually want to submit an announcement, you click submit an announcement, that takes you to the form. On the website, just underneath this is also where the podcast is. This blue button, the play button, playing that will play the day's announcement. And then you can go through, and as you can see, there are 60 days worth of announcements that were there that you can go back and listen to. So everyone has access to the form. We find that there's been no abuse of it. The teacher name is associated. So what happens is we collect email addresses when announcements are submitted. And so what we actually see is the teacher's name on the announcement. So we know it's a valid submission. So once they've submitted, again, very clear instructions, what it is we're trying to do. We're trying to keep that time frame really tight in the morning and trying to create an audio podcast. We use the form to email from, the plugin to email from the form to email so that we can collect it all up, copy and paste the text to make our script so that students have a chance to practice before they go and do the recording. Once we have all that data, the script, we just drop it into a Google Doc so multiple people can see it. There's collaborative writing going on. They practice reading it. As I mentioned, the ELL students are the actual talent that go out and do the presentations. We record it using Audacity. So we just have a small recording room. This is the best part about it. You may have in your school a place that has all the equipment, like a tech room that has everything you possibly want. But I'm not kidding. Just a Chromebook with a Yeti mic is good. But just a dedicated PC or a Mac with a good microphone with a copy of Audacity is what we choose to use, just simply because we find it easier to clean up the audio. Also, thing to think about, we record everything in mono because we have single speakers. We don't have stereo in our school. So we record everything in mono so that we don't lose any signal. It's like an old Beatles record. When we're done, we upload it to SoundCloud. We have as I mentioned, we have one graphic that we put on everything. So we still have our school logo that we throw onto everything. We paste in the script into the description, and then the announcements are once we hit the publish button, it goes live. So it's live on the website as soon as that button is pushed. Then we have multiple ways of listening to it. You can listen to it. So this box here on the school website, we have a widget right from SoundCloud that we've embedded in our school site. You can go to SoundCloud and have a full screen experience where you can listen to everything. You can go to iTunes and find it there, and you can subscribe to it and listen to it. Or you can use any podcast app. So even on my phone, I keep WCI announcements as a podcast. So every time there's a new one, it actually downloads it and I can listen to it. And for me with podcasts, I tend to listen at 1.2 times because I can get through more podcasts in less time. So the demo, before we get going there, any questions before we actually just do it? to get them on those platforms. We just upload it to SoundCloud, and then SoundCloud feeds it all out to everything else. Once you have the link between SoundCloud and iTunes, then it's going to be easily found. So you could go into iTunes podcast right now, type in WCI announcements, and it'll just show up. So we upload it to SoundCloud, and then we don't touch it again. It's taken care of by that service. Okay, to do a demo, I need a participant. Can somebody just drop an email into the chat that I can copy and paste in so I can interview you? And it can't be Peter because I've already done his. Don't worry, I won't embarrass you. It's not going live. It's just to go through the process to show you how, even during a pandemic, you can do this remotely. All right, I'm going to grab Jason here. Copy. Okay, so here's the demo. I'm going to shrink this screen. I just want to make sure you can still see. You can see my screen, right? Or did I just change it? I lost it. Screen one.
Lost it.
Share. Okay, here we go. Okay, so what I'm going to use is there's a service called Zencastr. Peter, I'm just checking because my screen went blank. You can see Zencastr?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so one of the things that I've used during this whole pandemic over the last 2 years to record audio and talk to people. So this is, again, something you can do with students. This is something you can do if you're doing something remote, you want to bring a guest speaker into your classroom, that type of thing. Zencastr is just another service that allows you to have some free recording. And then again, if you delete it, then it has a time limit. And so you may be able to bump that up by just removing old episodes. So I'm going to create a new episode. So a new podcast. I'm just going to call this sample. I just need to get the participants again. Oh, the wrong button. The chat open. And I have Jason. So I'm going to just call this Jason sample. And then I'm going to record audio. I don't want any video with this. And I'm just going to create that podcast. And so here I have a screen that is now doing some recording of me. It's doing a check. I hit the invite button, and I'm just going to put in Jason, and I'm going to paste the email he shared with me. Pasted. I'm going to send an invite. It's going to send an invite to Jason's email. Jason's checking email, and then he's going to see it and then be able to join me in Zencastr, and we can record live. This is the reason I like this so much. This tool is, again, because it works on a Chromebook. And so if your school's using Chromebooks, this is a great way to do some recording. It's still where they get you on this one is they charge you to do any type of editing with it. So I just pull the raw files out and I work with those. Jason Lay, did you get the email?
No, I didn't get it. Let me type my email address again. Let me see.
Okay.
So
let me just do this. I'm going to email it to you directly. Just so bear with us, folks. This is the joys of podcasting. It's about getting your talent in here. So I'm going to hit the invite again. I'm going to copy the invite link, and then I'm just going to paste that and send. So I just sent it again. Hopefully you'll get that.
Carlo, have you ever used Vocaroo? Is it similar?
No, I have not. But isn't that the one that animates?
I'm not sure.
This is the one I've had the most luck with, just as a free tool.
Yes, Sandra had asked that question. Sandra, do you have any experience with it? Do you want to unmute and talk?
Yeah, Vocaroo is just an online tool we use for recording, not for podcasting. What I like about it is the kids are not using an account or anything.
Can you have two people connect to the same conversation?
Well, I was wondering if you could do it with Vocaroo, but
Yeah, this one's going to give you 10 people. So if you want to have a larger
okay.
conversation.
So is it just is it an online tool, or do I need to use an account? I'm just thinking about what I'm allowed to use with the school board.
That's a good question. I think it's third party, so you'd have to get permission checking with your school. Jason, were you able to find us?
Yeah, I got in, so I'm just getting into my email account. So because I guess I'm using the same computer, so let me, because I tried using on my phone, it doesn't work on my phone, so I gotta, I just click join recording.
Yep.
Okay, what's your name? Join recording.
So everyone's seeing you coming in now as a guest. You're in the green room. So once you put in your data.
And it says internal microphone, right? So I click that and join recording.
And there it is. There's Jason on the page, ready to go. So we can actually do a recording. So Jason, you ready for the interview?
Yes.
So I'm going to, one of the things that I like to do is I like to tell people I'm interviewing what the questions are before we start. So I'm going to ask your name, then I'm going to ask you to pause, and then I'm going to ask you the next question. And I'm going to ask, so tell us a little about yourself. So you can give us a quick little blurb saying, I'm Jason, I teach whatever. And then based on that, I might ask you just some personal interests that you can explain about. And then we're going to end it right there. So we're going to just do a quick podcast.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, here we go. So all I need to do now is I hit the start recording button. I'm going to count us in as well. So I like to leave empty space at the beginning of any recording, so that when I put intro music, it's a little easier to fix it and just mesh things properly. So I'm going to hit record. So Jason, we're recording now, and I've had the pleasure of meeting you today, and I'm really looking forward to finding out more about you. So for our audience today, can you share with us what your name is?
Yeah, my name is Jason Lay.
And Jason, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? So
I teach business and civics at the York Region District School Board at Hodan Nalea Secondary School, and that's in Thornhill.
Thornhill, what a great name for a town. Do you know anything about how it got its name?
How Thornhill got its name? I just, no idea. That's a good question.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to do this with me today.
Oh, it was great doing this podcast. Thank you for interviewing me.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I just hit stop. And what it's doing now is it's actually creating the MP3 files of each recording. So what it does is it actually keeps them separate. So for example, say Jason had a lot of background noise. I would then be able to take his track and do some cleaning up of the background noise. And then for myself, I would be able to clean that up as well. So going through the process, I'm just going to hit the MP3 button, and I'm just going to download it. And then I'm going to hit the other MP3 button, and I'm going to download that. Now I'm going to take those, and I just drop them into Audacity. Peter, I can't see what you see. So do you see Audacity now?
We do. Yep.
Okay. So all I did was I dragged and dropped the audio files into Audacity. So now if I hit play. So Jason, we're recording now, and so it's going to start playing. And Jason, we're recording now. I just realized it's outputting to the wrong spot. Output speakers. Let's see. Can you hear this?
Not now.
I've had the pleasure of meeting you today.
Only slightly.
Okay, so it's going through my speakers, and I'm not sure why it's not working properly. How about this?
Your headset on?
Can you hear that?
No. Just faintly. It could be coming like from your headset into your mic.
Let's try this now. Hear anything?
No.
No, either do I. Okay. Let me turn the volume way up. And let's try it again.
Only barely.
Ever slightly? All right, so let's turn that volume. The volume's at its max. Let's turn this up. Today, and I'm really looking forward to
That's better.
About you. So for our audience today, can you share with us what your name is?
Yeah, my name is Jason Lay.
Okay, so as you can see, Jason we've got an interview. I use a piece of software to try and level it out. So say, for example, Jason's recording was a little quiet and mine was too loud. What I want to do is I want to take both of these recordings. Well, I'll just do one at a time. I have actually set up effect. It's called a compressor. And what it'll do is it'll just raise the volume of everything. And I'll do the same with Jason's audio. And say, okay, so now when we listen to it. So Jason, we're recording now, and I've had the pleasure of meeting you today, and I'm really looking forward to finding out more about you. So for our audience today, can you share with us what your name is?
Yeah, my name is Jason Lay.
And so as you can see, we've brought the volume up for everybody and it's leveled them off. So they're all at the same decibel level. So even if you have a quiet interview with one person, it'll bring the volumes up so that they're actually going to be able to be heard. At this point here, I want to bring everything back together. And so what I would do is I just do something called a mix down. So I just mix and render to a new track. And now what that's done is it will put, whoops, I didn't highlight both of them, sorry. Let's try that again. Come on, I always have trouble with this. Okay, so I'm gonna, oops, let's get rid of this one. I didn't get the right one. And just collect all, and then tracks, mix to new track. So now I have an audio track that has brought both tracks together as a single. So I've mixed it down to a single track. And so I can get rid of the original. And now I just have the one audio file. We're recording now. I've had the pleasure of meeting you today, and I'm really looking forward to finding out more about you. So for our audience today, can you share with us what your name is?
Yeah, my name is Jason Lay.
Okay, so Jason, can you tell us? So we have good audio now for the whole group. So the next thing I need to do is I need to go and I need to grab some intro music. So I have some intro music that I've downloaded already. So let me just download it again. So this is from the Incompetech website. So I'm just going to drag and drop that into the Audacity now. So what I need to do though is I need to control that volume. So I'll take this track and I'll just reduce the volume, and then I'll just fade it out and then just kind of move that around so I can move the audio where I need it. And now I've got intro music, a fade out, and then I am ready to break right into my interview, and I'll just move things around till it's the right sound.
You want to show how you can zoom into the transition?
So Jason, we're recording now. I've had the pleasure of meeting you today, and I'm really... So one of the things you'll notice that's way too long for an intro. So I just move that back, and I can then move everything over. And now I've just shortened it. I'm now down to the first 10 seconds. I've got some intro music. I've got the interview. And then what I can do a little bit later is I just come on over here where as the interview's over, I can bring that audio back up. So at the end of the interview, and then I have my music. I just have to delete the remainder of it. This is like a 5-minute repeating loop over and over again. As you can see, it's taking a bit of time here. Almost to the end.
Can you demonstrate how to fade it again?
Yep. And then I just deleted that. And so all I do is I hit this button here. This is the volume control button under the, and then just by clicking anywhere in the sound line, I can move it up and down and back and forth, and it will create the fade.
Okay.
And then also, if you have pieces that you want to delete, because, say somebody swears or something, you want to just delete that out, you just copy and you can just delete that right out of it as well.
Now, there was a question about whether you can use Audacity on a Chromebook.
No, it's not. This is the piece. The reason I use Audacity is it will run Linux, Mac, and PC. So those are the 3 places. And I even think there might be an iOS version of it. But it is completely free. And as you can see, it does so much to actually make an audio file. When I'm all done here, again, I just do a mix down. So I mix down to a new track. Oh, I have to make sure I select both again. So
now, we had a quick comment that we couldn't hear. And I think the problem is that his audio devices are being used by Zoom right now, which is probably why we can't hear things.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I hadn't. It's our first one for the year. So it's something we'll know for next time, but we'll have to feed audio in separately.
And here's a question. Can you use Zencastr to record solo?
Yes. And then here's my MP3, like my audio file is now finished and I'm ready to play.
Yeah, we can just barely hear it.
I've had the pleasure of meeting you. So we have an audio file. When you're done, just do the old save, export. Sorry, the export. Export is MP3. What I like about this is we'll just export it to our desktop, hit save. And because it's an MP3, you get to put all that information in. So you've ever seen an MP3 player, it'll show you the author, it'll show you the title, length of track, and all of that. So you can actually go in here and make sure you put in the name. So this was Jason, and this track might be, this might have been episode 1 of our podcast. And then we can just get rid of all the other extra information. And these are the MP3 tags that would be associated with it. And you will then be able to put in a year, put in podcast, and then make it all sortable. And then you end up with a final product at the end. Where's my MP3, which is now playable. And now I can take that MP3 and put it anywhere. So I have created an audio file that is now usable. So where have I put it? So I'm going to just take us back into the slide deck here for a second. You can see the slide deck again. Peter, just doing a check-in?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So what I've done with it is I put this link here because I wanted to show you where we've put it. So at the end here, you'll see that I've created a website that really goes into a lot more depth of everything I talked to you about today. How do I capture audio? So voice app, websites, USB microphone. The thing is about studio quality, there's sometimes you want to get involved in doing this. You want to go right into like the high-end stuff with XLR microphones and everything. If you don't have a media lab, don't worry about it. Your phone's good enough. Test it out. Make sure that there's interest before you go spending a lot of money. As you get better at it, you may want to start bringing video in. One of the things that you can do with Zencastr is if you progress past the audio, it'll also do video. So you can do video podcasting. Then where do you put it? All different ways of editing. Again, iMovie is one way, OpenShot, Shotcut, so many different types of editing, video editing out there. Then you can figure out where you want to store it. So I've done different types of podcasts. So there's the private podcast. There's the just using a service to throw it up. So Peter and I had one time talked about the different types of apps that you can use. Like, for example, Anchor is a podcasting app that you just put it on your phone and you're podcasting directly from your phone without any of these steps. The problem is the reason I didn't talk about it today is I did want to try and focus on things that you install on the computer that don't really have third party. I did show Zencaster because it's what I've been using during this pandemic. Whereas if I'm doing it in a classroom, it's really just, I have people there with me and I don't have to worry. I can use any voice recording locally. So on a Chromebook, I could do the voice recording and then export that MP3 elsewhere. So as you can see, Peter's there. And then if you really want full control, you build a website to host it. I've had a lot of great luck with WordPress as the back end for your podcast, simply because it automatically creates the feed that you can share to iTunes or any other podcast app. And people can subscribe to your website and actually goes directly into a podcast app. Now, again, very quickly, I'm just going to walk you through just some of the sites that we've made. So here's our WCI announcements. It's on SoundCloud. And so as you can see, if I want to just play an audio, the last one was the last day of school before we went home for the pandemic. Our students are just getting back into regular routine and they haven't really taken this back up yet. So we're hoping that it starts soon. But it's first week back without masks and we're finally able to use our recording room again. So SoundCloud, we put all our audio here. So it just goes back. There's 60 episodes here. This is public. And because it is SoundCloud and you can sign in, there's little widgets and you can actually put this on different websites. The other one we've done is when we were during the pandemic, we had a virtual staff room. And so we were just trying to create community. So one of the things we did is I did virtual book talks. And so this is using Google Sites. And all I did was created a Google site. And then all I did was just pasted in the audio file. So I would record an interview with different staff members and what their favorite books were. And then I would just paste them here and then other staff members could come into this website and listen. So these are teachers who are talking about their books that are of interest to them. And again, just nothing more than a Google site where we've just pasted in that MP3 that we just made in Audacity. I just drop it right in. I upload it into a Google site and it actually creates the player for me. So I don't have to do anything except embed the MP3 and then just hit play and then it just works. Welcome to the introductory episode of Virtual Book Talks.
We had a question about how much WordPress is. WordPress is completely free. You can host a website on the WordPress, I believe it's .org website, but the disadvantage of that is that it embeds ads in it. Or if you buy your own domain name, which is not very expensive, under $20 a year, and you'll have to pay for some hosting. So a package that I have, I pay around $50 for every 2 years. And then they have a tool that lets me install WordPress like very easily. In fact, I just dropped in a link to some podcast tests that I did on my website where I've hosted the podcast in different places. One was hosted on GitHub, one was hosted on Google Drive, and the other hosted on YouTube, just to see the way WordPress would behave with them. And it works quite nicely. I've also dropped in a link for free Mac and PC audio editors. And we had questions about Chromebook editing. The latest Chromebooks can actually load Android apps. But I doubt very much that school boards are going to allow this. They're probably going to have the feature turned off. But if you have your own personal Chromebook, you can probably do it if it's a recent one.
Yeah, I've been using Twisted Wave on Chromebooks for audio editing, but it does limit you to 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Now, again, because I'm being cognizant of the time, I just want to show you the last two websites. So Peter was talking about WordPress. So I actually keep a blog a WordPress blog, but what I've done is I've taken that and I'm creating a feed of a podcast, and here it is showing up in iTunes. And so it's actually on my personal website. So my personal website looks like this. So I put some coding stuff in here, just some feeds, but right here on the right-hand side, I type podcasts. So all my podcasts, I just use this link is the link to the podcast. So the thing is about using WordPress is that URL at the top is all that your podcast reader actually needs anymore. So it would just take that link, it would ignore all the text postings that I put on the website and only just grab the audio because I label them as podcast. Yeah. And what I like again about throwing it into SoundCloud, as you can see, it makes a pretty nice graphic. You know, it puts album art and everything in it, and it's playable right here. And there's Peter. Peter, that was 2018. So that was a while ago. And then lastly, I just wanted to show you the website that the English teacher is doing, who's taken a list of the most 100 awkward questions for conversation starters. And she's created this. She does it with her English class, and she just plays the audio. This is the one that we are storing the audio files on archive.org, so that if this site was to ever go away and the teacher retires and the students are curious about getting a copy of their audio recording, they can actually go back into archive.org and they can actually grab that audio. And we always put a link right on the site, so you can click the link and that will actually take us to a place where we can see the feed if we needed the feed to put into a podcast reader. But again, all we need is that link and it would grab everything for us. And again, just at the very end, first time I ever did this talk was for an OTF webinar back in June 2020. So if hopefully the recording worked today, and if not, there is a recording from 2 years ago that's still on this website that you can actually go into as well. And it should be very close to what you saw today. All right, any questions?
Feel free to unmute your mic if you like.
No, you know what it is? It was me. It was through Zencastr. I just turned it off. We're good.
No, I'm just saying to anybody else, if you'd like to ask a question.
Oh, sorry.
Unmute your mic. So here's a question: using Zencastr solo versus recording through Audacity or through a voice recorder app. Is one better than another? Yeah,
I just record directly into Audacity. That's what we do at our school. Zencastr was just for me to interview people remotely. So you know, if Peter's in a different city than I am, it would allow us to have a conversation that could be easily recorded. But if we're in the same room, we would just hook up a USB microphone to a laptop and record directly into Audacity, so that we get really the best sound quality we can.
Here was a question about not being able to find Audacity on your PC. You will have to download it. I think it's just audacity.org, is it not?
Yeah, I'm just checking. Audacity, free, open source, cross-platform. Yeah, audacityteam.org.
Yeah, let's just check for some other questions. Now, Zencastr, if it's a beginner, like somebody not very familiar with audio recording, Zencastr would certainly be a lot easier than recording with Audacity, correct? I'm just thinking Audacity can be complex with selecting the correct input and the levels. And
yes, that's why I suggest even just using your phone and using the voice recorder, and then email yourself the MP3 file, and then you've got a podcast. That's simple. The teacher that's doing the website I showed you here, Socially Awkward, this is all done with a cell phone. She just puts the cell phone down on the table with her and the student, and just has a conversation, records it, emails the audio recording to herself, and then posts it onto the website.
Any last questions? Okay, I'm going to drop a link into the chat. You'll receive this link later on as an email as well, but this is for the evaluation form. And if you'd like to stop sharing, Carlo, and I'll take over.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell Veronica, no, she doesn't edit them. She does it raw right off the table because it's meant to be conversational. So the only thing she does at the beginning was a countdown, and then she hits record. All right, I'm going to stop screen sharing so I can give this back to Peter, but I can't find, there it is. Stop share. Stop share. Thank you. Okay, you're all set.
Okay. And where's PowerPoint?
I do realize some of the stuff I did was pretty dense. I just wanted to walk you through just what a podcast is, the tools that you can use, and how I was also just really focusing on free tools so that you don't have to invest any money to get this to work.
I think it's wonderful for the classroom. Like that 3 questions podcast format you did with me, that was like amazing. And it's so simple for students to do. They don't need the most complex tools to be able to do it. And editing is really not that difficult if you have access to the right tools. Yeah, really enjoyed that. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending. And thank you so much to Carlo for presenting today. As I mentioned, you'll be receiving an email shortly, and it'll have a link to the evaluation form, as well as links to everything relevant to today. So it'll have a link to the website. It'll have a link to the slideshow. It'll have a link to the video that we've recorded. We will edit the video so that, for instance, the email addresses that were shown, we'll edit those out. Yeah, I think that's probably it. I would like to say, let's just check this. Yep, I've already given you that. Lastly, we have a number. This is just the first of around 10 webinars that we have coming up. So the next one's going to be March 29th with Tina Zita, Getting Giphy. And you obviously all know how to register for these webinars. So there's the link again for you if you're interested in participating again. So any last questions? Okay. Thanks so much, everyone. Oh, there was a request to include the chat links, and I will do that. I'll make sure they're included as well. So, thanks so much, everyone. Okay, take care.
Thank you. I was actually trying to type that really fast, so thank you. Whoever types faster than me. So I also want to say, Carlo, you said something before about editing to get your radio voice. I think you got radio voice. So for the record, you don't need to edit it.
Thank you.
Which mic are you using now? Are you using that?
I'm using a Sennheiser headset.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm just talking slower and have to talk like that.
Yeah. I'm on the Blue Yeti, so I don't know how it sounds out there.
It sounds great.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.